All right, welcome to the section on destructuring assignment. So destructuring assignment, this is a fun one. Destructuring assignment syntax is a JavaScript expression which allows us to extract data from arrays or from objects, and from those build distinct variables. So think about an object. When you're creating an object, you could say you're structuring the object, or you're adding structure to data. So we're going to destructure some objects, and from an object pull out data or extract data. So here's an example of what this looks like with an object first, and then we'll do arrays. So we've got a big bird object which contains properties height, color, and age. So from the big bird object, we're going to destructure or pull out the values color and height. Now these values are still going to be here in this original object. We're not mutating the original object in any way, but we're pulling out new variables named color and height. So you see here, you could use you could use color and height now as any object that you would, or any variable that you use other ways. All right, you can do the same with an array. So if we have an array of colors or an array of strings here, we can pull out from the array or destructure from the array some values. So we're going to pull out red and green from colors. So notice the similarities here in the syntax. When we're destructuring from an object, we're using curly braces around our new variables. And as we're destructuring from an array, we're using an array square brackets around the new values. So the reason that color maps to this property color here is because these both are named the same, right? Because this key exactly matches this property, which means these variables could be in any order. With an array, that's a little different. Arrays don't have keys, they just have a series of values. And so the reason this is red is because I've just named it red, but it's pulling out the value in this first index, or the 0th index, right? And green is going to pull out this first index. So if we want to pull out something that's far deep in the array, not the first value, you could use this syntax. So you'd say comma, comma, blue. That's going to target this third value here. Now obviously that's not optimal if you have something very deep or even an array of unknown size. In that case, we're going to want to use some other properties, maybe more like a filter or some sort of search function in that array. So I just want to reiterate, in this above code, color, height, red, green, and blue are all now distinct variables that we can use. And they have not mutated in any way the original object or the original array. So this is useful, and we use this a lot in React. But one way that it's almost one way of using this is almost more useful than just using it in line like this is to use destructuring assignment inside of your parameter list of functions. So imagine you've got a really large object, maybe like a big JSON blob that you've received from somewhere, and you want to pass this into a function. Well, it can be hard to be constantly dealing with accessing the values, like saying, object dot something inside the function. So using destructuring assignment, we can pull out properties from an object inside the function and then use those as if they were named properties, because now they are named properties, right? So this is another way this is particularly useful, is because if your function accepts an object, that doesn't really tell you, for a consumer of that function, they now have to dig through the code and read line by line to try and understand what that object should have in it, what the requirements are basically of that function. So when we break out the properties of an object and use destructuring inside of that parameter list, we're in effect, we're creating an API for a function showing that this function should accept an object, and that object should have these properties in it, and that those properties can come in any order. It's very useful. So let's go ahead and do the activity. The activity is to write a function which accepts a book describing, or an object describing a book, and that's provided in the JavaScript tab. That function should destructure out the title, the publisher, and the author, and return a string describing the book. So something like this book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, written by the author name, is available by the publisher, the Random House Books for Young Readers. So go ahead and pause the video now and do that activity. Okay, let's do the activity. Assuming we're back now, we're going to write a function which accepts a book, the book data, and is going to log out basically a sentence describing the book. So I'll say const about book equals a function, and this function should accept an object, and that object needs to have the properties title, publisher, and authors. And from there, we will return, and we'll use template literals here. So this will return a string that says the book title, published by publisher, was written by, and I'm guessing if you did authors here, probably ran into some, had some funny happen. So we could just have authors. Let's see what happens there. So we've got the string, the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, written by Random House Books for Young Readers, was written by Dr. Seuss, ghost author's name. So authors is an array, and so there are various ways to deal with that. So if the array is output here, what it's going to try and do is call the default toString function on arrays, and the default toString function of an array is to do concatenation on each of those objects using a single comma. So if we wanted to write a custom concatenation function, we could say .join and use a space and a comma, or a comma space. Right? Something else we could do is if we wanted only to take the first author, we could do that. And we've got Dr. Seuss. So the advanced activity goes into deep destructuring, and I'll let you explore that. There's a link to deep destructuring here in the resources. But the gist of deep destructuring is like this ISBN here, right? That's deep within the object. It's nested within a sub-object of that object. And so we need to find a way using destructuring to pull that from the depths of the object and bring it back out into our parameter list. So the activity for the activity plus is extend the function to include the ISBN, and that value is deeply nested within the object. We can use object destructuring to get this value as a parameter and include it as a sentence. So if you'd like to do that, go ahead and pause the video now. If not, we'll be moving on to array and object spread.